What is a fixer personality? Fixer personality is a deep desire within you to resolve and solve another human being's problems. Now, that doesn't sound like a bad thing, right? Especially because you probably have an innate ability to see other people's problems. You know, you're an empath, right? You can look around and see exactly what is going on with another person and exactly what they need to do to get their freaking shit together. So sounds like a good thing. Why is it not a good thing? Well, you and I both know it's not a good thing because 9 times out of 10, people don't do what you want them to do or what you think they need to do. People do what they do instead. And you're left at the end of the day feeling completely resentful because you had all these great ideas and unfortunately nobody took your advice and now things are worse. You're full of depression and sadness because you know that if this person fixes this issue, you in turn will have a better life. You'll be happier and everybody will be healthier if this person just does the damn thing that you need them to do. So you're resentful, you're depressed, you're sad, you're anxious, wondering when are they going to do the damn thing that I want them to do. And so it's a lot of burden to bear for a fixer. It's a hard road for you. And I want to spend a little bit of time talking about this fixer personality pattern dynamic today with you. I want to talk with you about the origin of this pattern and how it acts out or shows up in your life. And most importantly, I want to ask you, is this pattern working for you anymore? Is it serving you? Now, a lot of people that are fixers actually have livings that are do or work or missions or purposes, a purpose in your life that's reflected in this awesome talent and ability that you have. So many fixers are therapists by for a living. They are coaches, they are counselors, they are doctors, they are lawyers, they are mediators. They are in a profession because they're rewarded for actually seeing what problems are and fixing them. I am in that profession. I have a keen ability, an innate ability to see what's wrong, what's going on, and provide exact step by step methods to fix that problem. Now, it's awesome for me now because that's what I get paid to do. I get paid to help people fix their problems, right? But where it wasn't so amazing for me and maybe you can relate to this is a lot of us as fixers have a really hard time separating our work life from our private life. So what ends up happening is you're a doctor, you go into to work and you say the right thing to the patient and you know exactly what's going on with them and you find the root cause of all of this and you give them a step-by-step treatment plan and a solution and you're like God, you're like the you're like, "Oh my God, your patients are so grateful. They're thanking you all day long. Thank you so much for solving this problem," or you're a counselor, a coach, or a therapist, or what have you, and you're all day long, you're giving people this radical insight, and they're running with it, and it fills you up. It feels so freaking good. But then you get home and you have a partner who is freaking struggling. Maybe that is because they're alcoholic, or they have a binge drinking issue, or they're an intermittent alcoholic, or they're a binge using drug user, and you can see all the potential that this person has and everything that they're capable of in their life, but they have this one thing that if this thing gets fixed, that everything else is going to fall into place for your life and for your family. And the only problem is somehow your superpowers, although at work, they're beautiful, they're wonderful, you're an executive, you build companies, you're a turnaround specialist, whatever it is that you do, people are listening to you all freaking day long. You're a huge success story, but when you get home, you feel like a complete and total failure. Your best ideas are not appreciated. The advice you give isn't seen as helpful. The person that you're giving to the advice to actually is telling you things like you mind your own business, you're too involved. You should just let me do what I want to do. You should love me unconditionally. You should be there for me no matter what. Why do you always have to find something wrong with me? And then you're scratching your head and you start to wonder, well, is this person right? Am I the problem here? Is my helping hurting? How much should I be helping? When does helping turn into enabling? Is fixing this prolonging the problem? So I'm going to answer some of those questions today, and we're going to walk through this pattern. So you're in luck. If this is you, I've got you covered today. I'm going to talk about some of the crazy things that I've done in my journey as a fixer to help somebody. And through those stories, I think that you're going to be able to see yourself and know, more importantly, what the hell are you going to do now from this point on out? If you're new here, I'm Heidi Rain. Welcome home. I'm so glad you're here. On addiction and relationships, we talk about all things toxic relationship recovery. We deal with people that are addicted in relationships with addicts or alcoholics, learn how to navigate those relationships, figure out if you should stay or go. If you're on the fence, I've got you covered. And if at any time you want to deep dive into a course, self-study course, or you want to come get some group coaching, or you want to sign up for some private one-on-one time with me, you can do all those wonderful things at Heidi Rain, RAIN.com. So let's dive in. I think probably one of the biggest stories, examples I have around this, how crazy this fixing behavior can be, is actually what I did with my own dad. So I'm going to tell you that story. I'm going to walk you through, see if you can see yourself, and then we'll talk about what's next. So, we all have these times in our lives, these pivotal moments. For me, one of these pivotal moments was in a phone call. I was living a phone call that changed my life, really, or I thought was going to change my life, and actually did end up changing my life, but not in the way that I thought it was going to. Okay. I was living in Los Angeles at the time. I was running a matchmaking company in Beverly Hills. Trust me, it sounds a lot more glamorous than it actually was. Trust me here. Uh, but I got the phone call from my stepmom. It was like the middle of a work week, and she called me and she said something that I never thought that I would hear in my life, but prayed for my entire life. And those words were, "Your dad is checking in to rehab." I could not freaking believe it. When something happens when you're praying for your entire life, when you try to make happen your entire life and finally it comes to fruition and you are just so freaking beside yourself because in that moment you think just like I thought, my life is about to change. Everything I've ever wanted in a father can now finally come true. I'm gonna have the dad I always dreamt I could have. Now, although she said he was going into treatment, of course, as a fixer, I knew that couldn't be the end of the conversation because as a fixer, I could see the writing on the wall of all the future problems that were going to happen. Like, what is he going to do when he gets out of treatment? How's he gonna function? What's his recovery plan gonna be? What's he gonna do when he's in treatment? Is he gonna say the right things to the therapist that he needs to say? Is he gonna talk about his feelings and emotions and the deep problems that I knew had created this addiction in the first place? I mean, I was in California and he was in Westover, West Virginia, and this was not gonna work for me because my anxiety as a fixer was freaking through the roof. Let it go and trust the process was not in my vocabulary, okay? So I was thinking, "Well, we gotta do something." That's a fixer's motto, right? In fact, we keep our supplies nearby. We have our Wonder Woman cuffs nearby. We have our capes nearby. So what I did was I put on my cape and my cuffs and I flew home to the rescue. Now I was a independent business consultant at this time, so I just took a little leave, told them I needed a 2-week stay away. I would work remotely from West Virginia. I would handle my business, but I was needed and I had to fly home and fix some shit. So, I put on my cape and I flew home to Westover. Now, by the way, my stepmom's telling me, of course, "You don't need to fly home. He's going into treatment. I've got it under control." But I knew better. I knew that my stepmom at the time was his chief enabler. She was the one I thought in my mind that was making all this shit be able to go down, right? Calling in for work for him when he wasn't able to go in, which was rare because he was a functioning alcoholic, you know, um, driving him when she was worried that he was too drunk and, k having covering up for him when he was drunk and pretending that he just didn't take his blood pressure medicine. I mean, on and on and on and on. So I knew that I had to go in there, okay, and take some serious action. So put on my cape, and I flew into Westover, West Virginia. Now, I rolled up my luggage to the door and I opened it up and I was rolling up my sleeves and we're ready to get into work. Now, my house, that house that my dad lived in, his house, was a ramshackle, shickety shackety shackle of a house that was flea market fabulous. It was the top of a hill in Westover, West Virginia, very small town. Right across the way was the Sheets where he would wash his car and buy his beer. And so I walked in the house, I opened the door, and of course, what greets you when you open this front door is the smell of cigarettes and stale beer and cats. You know what I mean? So I kicked away one of the 15,000 cats that were in the way, and I surveyed the land. And I was like, holy shit, this man who is finally going into treatment after I've wanted him to go my whole entire life cannot walk back in to this space. He needs a transformed space if he is gonna feel sober. So I called my sister, called her up, and we got to work. My sister also is a powerhouse. I mean, you might have seen her on some of these other episodes, but I enrolled her and I said, "We have got to get to work and transform this house to a sober environment." So, what did I do? Well, the first thing I did is I went around and looked for all the bottles. And that wasn't my first time doing that, looking for all the bottles. I remember as a little girl finding many bottles and dumping them out down the drain to try to get my dad to stop drinking. So I looked at all his spots where I knew they would be. He liked to hide alcohol behind the toilet tank. Who's gonna go in there, right, and fix the unless you're trying to jiggle the handle and fix the toilet, not me, right? But I knew that's where he hid bottles of vodka. So I'd open up the toilet tank, take out the bottles of vodka, and dump them down the drain. Then I knew that he had stashes of marijuana throughout the house, so I went into all the drawers, cleaned out. So I went on a mad hunt. If there was a rogue pill, a random bong, papers, weed, alcohol, liquor, whatever it was going and gone. And I got all the trash bags and scooped it all up and put them all out. So that was a number one. Find all the stuff and get rid of all the stuff. Step number two was we've got to transform this dirty house. He's got to come home to a clean environment. It was kind of like a hoarder house, really, to tell you the truth. Um, there was just shit everywhere. So I know now in hindsight, looking back at this, how terrifying this is, especially if somebody has a hoarding issue that you're just going to come in with bags and remove the shit. But I was so set in the fact that I knew better. I knew what needed to be done, that I just decided to just throw everything away. All the things that didn't make any sense. And I feel so bad about that now because I know when somebody's a hoarder, they need to actually physically do that themselves. They need to release the things and work through the anxiety. But I just thought, no, I'm in charge of everything. I need to fix everything. I can fix this. So let me fix it. So I ripped up carpet that had beer stains in it because you can't my dad couldn't come home to a couch or a carpet that had beer stains on it. That was gonna remind him of his old life. So I ripped up carpets and laid new carpets down. In West Virginia, when you just don't want something, you just throw it on the burn pile and catch it on fire. So I put chairs out there, lit them up, caught them on fire, and I celebrated when that was happening because I was thinking to myself, "I'm gonna burn this lazy boy couch that has cigarette holes in it and beer stains all over it. And because my dad's never going to sit in a couch like this again and drink himself to death again. So I'm going to burn this couch. It was very symbolic for me to get new furniture, put new furniture in there, rip up linoleum. Um, I there were nicotine stains all over the walls. So I mean, I can tell you the buckets with the gloves, with the water was just stained of cigarette yuck gunk. But I wiped on and my sister did a lot of that too, wiped down all the walls. There was a big stain, like fire remnants because my dad used to get drunk and try to do like pyrotechnics. He'd do firecrackers and all kinds of things. And one of his things was like the kerosene heater, but he was very unsafe and unpredictable. So many times things would like catch he'd light cigarettes on the gas oven and things would catch on fire and shit. And occasionally so we had like soot. So I got rid of all that. I mean, I cleaned for a period. The first week, the first 9 days was a complete overhaul of this house. I where he would smoke on the patio and drink his Miller Lights. I went out and painted the patio, redid the patio furniture, sanded down the rust-stained railings, and made them brand new. I wanted my dad to walk up to this house and think of it like a sober sanctuary. So I mean, I went above and beyond, scrubbed, bought stuff, did it all, burned things and felt proud of myself. And I just remember thinking to myself as I sat back at the end of this work, that I had been working for like 9 days or 10 days or whatever at this point, and just I'm so amazing. Look at everything I have solved the world's problems. I have created a sober space for my dad, and he's gonna come out of treatment, and he's gonna know I did that for him, and he's gonna feel so, I don't know, obligated to stay sober maybe because of all this hard work that I have done and created. So I relaxed, I rested, I felt so proud of my work. The house smelled good. The shit smelled like Lysol for days. Okay. Just smelled like Lysol. We had fresh flowers, with the grass was cut. I mean, this place was, if anybody was going to get sober there, it was going to be him. Okay. Or stay sober. But I didn't stop there. As a fixer, I wanted to make sure that everybody in the family knew how to behave when he got out of treatment. So I went over to each of my siblings and gave them the riot act about how they were supposed to behave, what was probably right to talk about or not right to talk about. Hey, listen, one of my brothers was like into pot smoking. And, so I went over to him and I was like, look, you can't smoke or come over here smelling like weed around him because you're going to trigger him. So you just need to kind of like stay away. And, because he was the type of person to be like, well, alcohol is the devil. He just needs to smoke weed and he'll feel better. So that was like his philosophy. But that wasn't going to work for me. I needed to tell him how to behave around my father. My other brother had a lot of resentment and anger. So I would say, look, you need to keep that stuff to yourself. You're going to trigger him up. Now, all of these things are wrong. All of these things in hindsight are wrong. But as a fixer, we think we know better of how to tell everybody else how to behave so that they don't stir the pot or make bad drink. So you need to say this, you need to behave this way, you need to not come around, you need to, you know, um, all the things. Now, did I have any control over how people would talk or share or what they would? No, absolutely not. But as a fixer, I felt better because I felt like I was making some kind of momentum and headway by telling everybody, right, how to behave. Of course, nobody's going to behave the way tell them to behave. They're going to behave how they behave, not how you want them to behave. So that pattern actually is a little bit of a controller pattern mixed with a fixer. And if you're curious about even if you have this pattern or if you're a controller pattern or withholder pattern, which pattern you are, I created a test for you when I invented these 8 different attachment patterns over at HeidiRain.com, RAIN. You can take that test. It takes about 15 minutes to figure out what pattern you are. And I highly encourage you to do that. So I was very proud of myself, and I just thought, "You know what? This feels so good." And so then I didn't stop there. I thought, "Well, now he has a clean house. Now he has a clean space. Now I've read the riot act to everybody in his life and how they should behave and how to interact with him. Let me now research meetings for him because when he gets out, he's gonna need to know where to go, right, for his AA." So I spent all the time on the internet researching all the different meeting places and actually mapping them out. On Mondays, you can go here. On Tuesdays, you can go here, and thought, I'll go with them to these meetings as well. I'll drive them to the meetings. I'll stay a little longer for the first week I'll be here. I'll get him situated in all of his things. You know, and then I thought to myself, well, I've got to make sure that, he doesn't hang around anybody that's not the right people. So let me like scope out the crowd and make sure this is a good crowd for him, the right kind of people. And I've heard other people that I've worked with tell me when they've had children that have gone into treatment or spouses that they have scrubbed their Facebook. Like they've gone into my dad didn't have any social media, but if he did, I would have done it. I would have gone in and eliminated all his weirdo friends, his drunk buddies, and I know that many of the clients that I have and students in our courses have done the same thing. Some of us have even gone as far as making phone calls to people and saying, "Hey, look, my husband's in treatment. He's getting out. You need to leave him the fuck alone. When he gets out, lose his number." Finding the drug dealers, making sure we burn the information. Many of us have gone the extra mile, okay, to make sure that we try to protect our loved ones. So I found meetings, mapped out the recovery, had my dad's recovery plan down pat. And I just remember again feeling so great about myself, like Man, I just got all these angles covered. I know exactly what to do. I couldn't have been prouder of the 2 weeks that I spent. I couldn't have been prouder of the way now, knowing I only had a short period of time because I'd have to fly back to California at the end of this process, I had made sure to do everything that needed to be done so I could fly out of there and everything would be taken care of. So, I am the day my dad gets out of treatment, sitting on the porch with my sister, super excited, looking just I am so waiting for him to like get out of the car and drive up and just walk up to the house. And I just imagined him walking in with tears of gratitude. Oh my God, girls, thank you so much for protecting me, for fixing this space up, for dumping out all the bottles, for taking such great care of me. I posted the meeting schedule on the refrigerator and color coded it for different days so he could see. And I just thought, he's going to be so overwhelmed with gratitude. Look at everything we've done. So I'm sitting on the porch. I'm ready to go. He pulls up. The excitement is unbearable. I know he could see the new flowers I planted as he was pulling up. He could see the new flowers that I planted. So Heather and I are there. My sister and I are there. We're like, this is the holy moment. We're holding hands. We're so proud of each other. We look over, my dad opens the door and he puts a foot on the ground and he starts to make his first steps up the long, steep hill to come in the house. And now, being person that is so attuned to what everybody else needs as a fixer and what is happening with everybody else, being hyper sensitive to what's going on with everybody else, I knew by the way he stepped out of the car, the way his eyes looked from that distance, and how he walked, his gait, that he was already drunk. I could know when my dad was getting out of the car if it was 1 beer, 2 beers, 6 beers, oh shit, run, you know, I knew. And I just remember thinking to myself, how the fuck is this even possible? Everything I have done, all the effort, all the airfare and flights and managing and putting how could he do this to me? Is actually what I thought. How dare he do this to me? Doesn't he have any idea what he's doing to me? Look what I've done for him. I actually didn't wanna believe it. I didn't wanna believe it, and I looked over at my sister, and I knew she knew he was drunk too because we had the same radar, and we were both just like, like, "What happened? How does he get out of" it was not even 24 hours out of treatment, and he was drunk. Now, I remember at the time thinking as a fixer, all right, look, all is not lost. This is 1 day. Maybe he can be. Now, I was so naive. I didn't know my ass from a hole in the ground. I had no idea. Okay. That statement is so freaking weird. Why do people say that? Anyway, uh, I just thought, well, this can't go to waste. Okay. All this work that I've done cannot be for naught. So let's keep trying. And so he came home, he was drunk. And I think there was just a part of me that wanted to pretend it wasn't real. You know what? Maybe it's my imagination, even though my sister corroborated the story. I remember feeling disappointed, but getting it together because my work could not be for naught. It couldn't. So he walked in and I showed him around. And he was and I of course, he was a little drunk, not as drunk as he normally would get. And so he had a little bit of a reaction to it, like, "Oh, wow, this is neat, neat, neat," It's my dad's favorite thing to say, "Neat." But didn't really notice all the things that I had done, couldn't really see that didn't really pay attention. I think that what he did ask, though, when he got in was, "Where's my chair? Where's my chair?" I think he was mad that his chair wasn't there. We got him this new chair to sit in, but wasn't his old chair, and I was upset that he was mad. How could he be mad that his old cigarette hold, beer-stained chair isn't there? How dare he be mad that I made all these changes and not grateful instead? I'm sure he was also frustrated because he was walking around looking for his stashes, and all those were gone too. Couple days went by. I was about ready to fly back out to California, and my dad had agreed. He had been in treatment for like 30 days or something like that. Had been home for a couple of days. My time was coming to a close, and he had part of his recovery plan was to go into this family program. That was a local thing. So I'm like, all right, I had already known he'd been relapsing at this point, but we're all sitting around. We're at this family program. There's the therapist sitting over here, and there's a circle of people and family members. And, there's some other people. And then there's my dad. And then there's my stepmom sitting next to him. And then there's me. And then there's my sister. And we were all in this family program. Now, my dad had already been relapsing. We already knew it. But I was just, I don't know if I was just like playing along or just hoping it would turn around or something would stick. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. But I remember they were going around checking in with everybody, and I got to my dad, and my dad, looked over at the therapist, and they were like, "Oh, why don't you go?" And my dad goes, "Hi, my name is Tim, and I've been sober for 33 days." And everybody around him started to clap, right? Everybody was clapping. And he was like super proud of himself. And my stepmom was sitting next to him, like clapping and so happy and like pointing at him and like holding up his hand, like we are the champions. And they were like celebrating. And I just remember everything in me from my feet started to burn all the way up to my head. And I just looked, and my dad, as he was celebrating and as she was like holding his hand, he was fucking drunk. And I just so, like, it was like a come to Jesus moment. I looked over at the therapist. The therapist has her head tilted to the side and her lips kind of pursed, and she's just, clapping along and shaking her head and just super proud. And I'm like, "Is she blind? Is she nuts? Like, where did she go to school? What the fuck is going on here?" I remember thinking. And I just looked over at my sister and I grabbed her hand and I wanted to say, he's drunk and you're an idiot and you need more training. And what the fuck is going on here? And and I just wanted to blow the lid off the whole thing. But instead, in that moment, I got up from my seat. I looked over at my sister and I walked outside. I just walked outside to my car. My sister came out with me, followed me out. And I looked at her and I was like, that's it. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done with this insanity. I'm done with this charade. I'm done pretending. I'm done trying to fix everything. I was done. I wanted to fix it in that moment. I wanted to look at the therapist and read her the riot act. I wanted to look at my stepmom and tell her get out of fucking denial. I wanted to do all these things, but I thought I've been doing this my whole life, telling people the truth, helping people see shit, trying to fix stuff, and I'm still here. I'm still here sitting in a meeting where my dad is drunk and I'm trying to like manage my emotions. I'd had it. I looked at her and I said, honey, I'm done. I've done everything I can possibly do. And now it's on him. It's going to be up to him whether he gets sober or he doesn't. But I cannot live my life trying to fix this problem for him anymore. And I meant that. And the crazy thing happened when I decided to do that. All of the things that I was suppressing in my own life, all of the issues that I was having in my own life, I started to come to terms with because the truth was, I was fixing my dad's house up and then celebrating by drinking a bottle of wine and smoking cigarettes and getting drunk myself. I too had an issue or many issues that I was avoiding because all of my focus and energy and attention went on to fixing my dad instead. And in that moment, I made a decision that I was going to work on myself and let whatever happened with my dad happen. And I was going to decide how I was going to be involved in his life, whether he got sober or not. Now, that was a long journey for me. That was a journey that started 17, 18 years ago. I don't know how long that was. I was like almost 20 years ago. It was a very long time ago that I made that decision. And from that point, I started to take control of my own life, work on setting boundaries. Actually, that was the moment, that was the time frame when I started to create a path to healing for myself, from my own codependent behaviors. I didn't want to be a fixer anymore. I started to look around at my own life after that moment. I went back to California and I called my boyfriend who lived in Pennsylvania, who was a same toxic pattern, a withholding pattern, the act. And I was and we were doing this dance together, this toxic pattern. It was like all of a sudden I looked around and I thought every relationship that I have, I am trying to fix another human being and make them into something I want them to be for me instead of just deciding that I deserve and can have somebody who's not fucking broken. That was like a crazy concept for me at the time. And I looked around and I thought, here I am trying to fix my boyfriend by making him see my value, making him want to commit to me, making him want to choose me. He was a love addict. I was trying to resolve that everything in my life from that point with my dad, every toxic pattern, attachment pattern that I had, I was living out in my friendships, I was living out in my relationships, and the minute I decided to stop doing that dance with my dad, I realized I can heal every other pattern in my life too, and that's when my life started to change. After that, that's when I attracted a true partner in my life. After that, that's when I created the family that I've always wanted. After that, when I had the formula to healing these codependent pattern for good, is when I started writing the books and making the courses and doing the programs and helping hundreds, thousands of other people all around the world heal this pattern too. The pain that I was in, the lengths that I went to save another human being knew no bounds. And instead of putting all that energy into saving and fixing another human being, I realized I've got to put that energy in myself. I've got to realize what I need. Where is my bottom line? Where are my boundaries? What am I no longer willing to settle for? What am I no longer willing to tolerate in my life? What do I want? What kind of relationships do I want? What kind of love do I want to attract in my life? Yes, I can do this professionally. I'm a seer. I can fix shit. I know what problems are, right? But in my personal life is where I want to go to be filled up with love and support and encouragement so that I can have the fuel that I need to go into my books and my retreats and my courses and help people, not be depleted by my relationships that pull me from my purpose. You see the difference? So I've created the course, I've created all the things to be able to help you too. Do you see yourself in this story today? Can you relate? If you can, let me know. Leave a comment, send me a message. Go over to lovecoachheidi.com or heidirain.com and learn more about the ways that I can support you on this path and to help you undo this pattern as well. I've created a 7-step process for you to be able to undo this patterning for good. If you're tired of being the fixer in your life, personally and not professionally, if you are tired of having one-sided relationships where you are giving and giving and giving and nothing is fucking changing, if you are tired of being the only person who cares about the quality of your life and everybody else is like out to lunch, if you're tired of that behavior, if you're tired of coming up with all the plans and the plans never pay off, it's your turn. It's your turn to enter into your own toxic relationship recovery, your own codependency recovery. And I've created that course for you over at HeidiRain.com. I love you so much. If this has been helpful for you, let me know. Leave us a rating. If you're watching this if you're listening to the podcast, we'd love to have a rating from you. That would be really great. Helps us help more people. If you're watching on YouTube, if you could like or leave a comment, that helps us help more people. If you want to share this video with somebody else you know might be struggling from this fixing pattern, that would be really helpful as well. I love you so much. I hope this has been helpful for you. And I'd love to help you deeper over at HeidiRain.com. See you really soon. Take excellent care of yourself. Bye bye.